The title of this video is "The First Step to Buying a Home Isn't What You Think," and I can prove it with two renters. Both were convinced they couldn't buy a home. One became a homeowner a few months later, the other couldn't buy, at least not yet. And both taught me the exact same lesson. Because neither one was really looking for a house. They were looking for an answer. Can I buy? Am I close? Am I wasting my time? Where do I even start? And if you're watching this video, there's a good chance you're looking for the same thing. Not necessarily a home, an answer. Today I want to walk you through the process I would follow if I were starting from scratch and had absolutely no idea where to begin. And along the way, I'm going to share a few stories that completely changed how I think about helping buyers. But first, let me give you the entire roadmap in less than a minute. If you're thinking about buying a home, the process generally looks like this. Talk to a lender, get pre-approved, determine your budget, start looking at homes, make an offer, complete inspections, complete the appraisal, get final loan approval, close, get the keys. That's it. That's the roadmap. Now let's talk about where people actually get stuck, because it usually happens before step one. The first step isn't looking at homes. A while back, someone contacted me because they were looking for a rental. Now, I have no problem helping people find rentals. Sometimes renting is absolutely the right answer, but I always ask one question. Have you ever looked into buying? Immediately they told me they couldn't. Not that they had tried, not that they had spoken to a lender, not that they had explored their options. They simply assumed they couldn't. So I suggested they have a conversation with the lender. A few days later, they called me back. The tone of the conversation was completely different. Turns out they qualified for significantly more than they thought. A few months later, they were homeowners. Now let me tell you about the second renter, because honestly, I think this story is even more important. She contacted me because she needed a rental. Same conversation. Same question. Have you looked into buying? She told me she already knew the answer. She was at least a year away, maybe longer. I suggested she talk to a lender anyway. A few days later, she got her answer. And something interesting happened. Nothing changed. Her income didn't change, her debt didn't change, interest rates didn't change. The market didn't change. The only thing that changed was her understanding of her situation. She was right that she couldn't buy today, but she wasn't a year away. She wasn't even close to a year away. She may be less than 6 months away. Now she has a goal, a timeline, a plan. That conversation didn't get her a house, it got her direction. And sometimes that's even more valuable. And honestly, that's why I think talking to a lender is the first step to buying a home. Not because you're ready to buy, because you're ready to stop wondering. Let me ask you something. If a lender told you today that you couldn't buy for another 6 months, would that be bad news? Most people would say yes. I wouldn't, because now you know what needs to happen next. The people who stay stuck usually aren't the people who hear no. They're the people who never ask. One thing that stood out to me was how many people said they were embarrassed to ask questions. Think about that. Not afraid, embarrassed. They didn't want to sound uninformed. They didn't want to ask a stupid question. Quick question. If I handed you a blank sheet of paper and asked you to explain escrow, could you do it? Most people couldn't, and that's okay. Most people don't understand mortgages. Most people don't understand appraisals. Most people don't understand title work. Most people don't understand underwriting. Nobody teaches this stuff, and that's why asking questions matters. I'd rather answer 20 questions than watch someone make one expensive mistake because they were afraid to ask one. Let's talk about the lender conversation. What's the worst thing that can happen if you talk to a lender? Seriously, think about it. Most people think the answer is no, but honestly, that's usually not the worst outcome. The worst outcome is spending the next 3 years guessing when you could have spent the next 3 years working a plan. A lender isn't there to decide whether you deserve a home. They're trying to determine what programs may fit you. They're looking at things like income, debt, credit, assets, employment history, financial stability. And before you start thinking, well, my debt is too high or my savings aren't where they should be, remember this. Lenders work with people in all kinds of situations. There are loan programs specifically designed for people who don't have perfect finances. They're not looking for perfection. They're trying to determine options for you. Talking to a lender doesn't commit you to buying a house. It simply tells you where you stand. Because if you don't know where you stand financially, you risk breaking your own heart. Let me tell you about one of the biggest mistakes I made as a new agent. A buyer found a house they absolutely loved. And I mean loved. The kind of house where they were already mentally moving in before they owned it. If you've ever found yourself looking at homes online and imagining where your furniture would go, you know exactly what I'm talking about. I asked if they had spoken with a lender. No. I encouraged them first, but they really wanted to see the home. So we went. And honestly, it was a fantastic house. By the time we left, they were talking about furniture, paint colors, where everything would go. Then they spoke with a lender. Reality showed up. They qualified for almost $100,000 less than they expected. That was a difficult conversation. Not because anyone did anything wrong, but because hope had already attached itself to that house. That experience taught me something I'll never forget. Getting pre-approved isn't paperwork, it's emotional protection. Shop for information first, the home comes later. One thing I see all the time is people assuming they only have one path to home ownership. That's not usually the case. There are conventional loans, FHA loans, USDA loans, VA loans. Different programs exist because different buyers have different situations. The goal isn't to memorize every loan type. The goal is to understand what options may be available to you. You don't have to become a loan expert. You just need enough information to know what questions to ask. Let's talk about the inspection freakout. Every transaction, every single one. I tell buyers the same thing. When the inspection report comes back, don't panic. And every single time my phone rings, Kyle, this house is falling apart. What have I done? How do I get out of this contract? Then we sit down and go through it line by line. Loose handrail, GFCI outlet, minor maintenance item, normal wear and tear. Sometimes we bring in contractors for second opinions. And almost every time they reach the same conclusion. This isn't nearly as bad as I thought. I think many people expect inspections to work like a pass or fail test. They don't. The inspector isn't deciding whether you should buy the house. They're helping you understand the house. That's a completely different thing. The purpose of an inspection isn't to find a perfect home. It's to understand the one you're considering buying. But while inspections scare buyers more than almost anything else, they're still not the thing I've seen create the most problems. Before I tell you this, let me ask you a question. If your lender approved you today, would you consider the deal done? Most people would, and that's where people get themselves into trouble. Once you're under contract, keep your financial life boring. Don't buy a truck, don't finance furniture, don't open credit cards, don't co-sign for someone. I've heard stories about buyers who were days away from closing. Everything looked perfect. Then they financed a washer and dryer, and suddenly they had a problem. What most people don't realize is that lenders often verify your financial situation one final time before closing. So the washer and dryer wasn't really the problem. It was changing the financial picture after approval. Avoid surprises. The lesson isn't that appliances are dangerous. The lesson is that your financial picture matters until the day you close. Keep things stable. Avoid surprises. Let's zoom out for a minute. Most people aren't buying homes because they enjoy paperwork. They're not buying homes because they enjoy inspections. They're buying because they want stability, a place that's theirs, a workshop, a garden, a backyard, a place to build a life. When you remember that, all the paperwork starts making a lot more sense. Remember those two renters from the beginning? One became a homeowner a few months later. One still has work to do, but both stopped wondering. Both stopped guessing. Both finally knew where they stood. And that's why I consider both conversations a success. One got a house, the other got a plan, both got clarity. And that's really what this process is about. Not getting a yes, getting clarity. Because once you have clarity, you can build a plan. Maybe your plan starts today, maybe it starts 6 months from now, maybe it starts 2 years from now. But at least you're moving forward instead of standing still wondering. So if you're thinking about buying a home someday, stop trying to answer the question yourself. Ask the question. You might discover you're closer than you think. Or you might discover exactly what needs to happen next. Either way, that's a win. If you're ready to find your answer, let's talk. I'm here to help you build your plan. Let's get moving forward. I'm Kyle Harper, and I'll see you in the next one.